Hello, my name is Sheila Elrodani, and I would like to take just a couple of minutes to discuss my dissertation topic and how that fits into the broader body of scholarship. This work will specifically focus on the Civil War in Southern Appalachia and the Church of the Brethren, commonly known as Dunkards, who became highly involved in the Civil War even though they were pacifists. The Church of the Brethren were German pietists. They immigrated from Europe in the early to mid 1700s and established themselves initially in eastern and central Pennsylvania. Several groups broke off subsequently, migrated west of the Blue Ridge Mountain, and joined the migration of settlers down the Great Wagon Road of the Shenandoah Valley. So, communities of Dunkards, Church of the Brethren, became established all along the Shenandoah Valley and into southwest Virginia and eastern Tennessee. The Church of the Brethren were German pietists. They believed in non-oath taking. They did not take an oath to any secular authority. They were pacifists and did not believe in any type of military service or taking up of arms. They practiced adult believers' baptism, which is how they came to be known as Dunkards. And they practiced a literal interpretation of the Sermon on the Mount. So, as they set up small communities down the Shenandoah Valley into southwest Virginia, they developed a strong identity of confessional community. They remained closely aligned with their foundational theological tenets. This means that they were generally, but not universally, opposed to slavery, and there were very few slaveholders among the brethren. They were often associated with abolitionist movements as well. When the war began, the Civil War began, the Church of the Brethren refused to join either the Union or Confederate armies. This was related to both their pacifist beliefs and their belief in non-oath taking. So the Brethren refused to join the military, but it wasn't long before they became targets of guerrilla violence as being opposed to the Confederate government or working to undermine the Confederate government. This is because the Church of the Brethren, the Dunkards, became involved with the hiding, protecting, and movement of Confederate deserters and escaped Union prisoners north out of the Confederate states. So as they became involved, they garnered very unwelcome attention from the Confederate military, the government, and irregular forces in the Mountain South. There's quite a bit of scholarship that addresses specific aspects of the Civil War in Southern Appalachia and the religious components to the Civil War in Appalachia. There's been a large amount of attention addressing the theory of widespread Unionist sympathies among the population of the Mountain South. This started with a thesis proposed by Henry T. Shank in 1944, which identified Southwest Virginia as a hotbed of Unionism by mid to late periods of the war. Since that time, the Shank thesis has held and not been overturned, but it has gained a lot more and nuanced interpretation because at this point the scholarship focuses not on a blanket thesis of unionism, but rather on widespread declining support for the Confederacy, a refusal to support the Confederate war effort. And so scholarship currently is looking at all of the many different reasons that different communities and different areas of different states had declining support for the Confederacy, and whether or not that actually translated universally into widespread unionism. This research will help to answer one aspect of that question because as a confessional community of pacifists who were opposed to slavery, opposed to secession, and opposed to the war in general, the Church of the Brethren worked very hard to undermine the Confederate war effort. And this is not necessarily because they supported the Union war effort, but because they opposed war in general. So this work is going to help to address some of the scholarship concerning the widespread Mountain South Unionist thesis. It will also help to illuminate a lot of the scholarship seeking to understand the high rates of desertion in the Mountain South and how Confederate deserters and escaped Union soldiers were moved north through the mountains. So we know that a large portion of men who were moving out of the active war zones in Virginia and points south were funneled through the southern mountains and up the Shenandoah Valley. So this work seeks to illuminate some aspects of the logistics of how this was happening and who was involved in the movement of these men north. So the work will focus just on the Church of the Brethren. So it does not attempt to answer a universal question of unionism or desertion, but it does seek to illuminate how worldview and foundational Christian theology and theological belief system drove the Church of the Brethren to take an active part in undermining the Confederate war effort and supporting men who were choosing to move out of the war zone going forward. So I hope you join me as we continue this research, and I feel that we're going to shed a significant amount of light on these aspects of the Civil War in Southern Appalachia and the Shenandoah Valley. Thanks.